I mean, I don't know. Is this real Amish people making this? This says that it's coming from Ohio, from some manufacturing. I mean, who knows if it's real Amish people making this? Well, it's peach season. What are you going to do with your peaches? Well, I'm making a peach pie, but no ordinary peach pie. This one today is going to be a peach cream pie. So I have already made my pie crust ahead of time. And it's so funny because as I was in the testing for these recipes, I was mostly testing to make sure the consistency for the filling was correct and the taste was spot on. And on my final test, I did make a small little pie crust to actually test it all together. And I was more amazed and in love with the pie crust more than the actual peach pie filling. I was like, this pie crust is absolutely delicious. This recipe is so flaky and light and tender with the perfect amount of salt to the sweetness that goes into the rest of this recipe. You guys, if you have not mastered the art of making a perfect pie crust, you've got to check out my video where I show you a step-by-step tutorial for how to do that. And it's funny because I got a really great comment on that video and they said, "This is the most comprehensive pie crust tutorial that I've ever seen." I was like, yeah, it totally is. So if you guys have not mastered your pie crust game, you've definitely got to go check out that video. And my recipe, of course, is, in my opinion, really the best. It's got a perfect mix of coconut oil to vegan butter to actual vegetable oil, and those three fats together in this recipe, in addition to the way that I show you how to mix it, you're going to have the most amazing pie crust ever. So I've made that ahead of time. I show you how to roll it, how to flute it, all of that. And I have to blind bake it today. So I've pricked the bottom of it with a fork for some little steam vents, and I've poured in some rice with a little parchment paper liner. I don't have proper pie weights, so I just use rice and beans, and I use them over and over again every time I need to blind bake a pie shell. So, you know, the idea of that is just to sort of, you know, weight down the pie dough so that when you do stick this into the oven, it's not like, you know, your pie dough is not collapsing in on itself, because we are pouring in a cold peach mousse filling into this. And let me not get too far ahead of myself. I have my oven preheating to 350 degrees, and I'm going to pop this pie shell in there just until it starts to get browned. Then I'm going to remove the pie weights and just like bake it for another maybe 5 minutes so that the bottom gets cooked too. So let me go ahead and do that, and then we are going to talk about peaches. So I've got fresh peaches here, and I also picked up a jar of these Amish wedding old-fashioned vanilla peaches, which is basically equivalent to like a canned peach, only anything that's in a jar is actually better than canned. So essentially this is like a poached peach, and I wanted to really try these. I mean, I don't know, is this real Amish people making this? This says that it's coming from Ohio, from I don't know, some manufacturing. I mean, who knows if it's real Amish people making this, but I'll tell you what, as you see, I've already eaten a few and they're delicious. So if you don't have fresh peaches, or you don't want to go through the trouble of what I'm going to show you next, you could definitely use a jarred peach or a canned peach in place of everything that I'm using here today, where I say fresh peaches. So it's really your option to interchange it however you like or whatever you can get. So I'm actually going to be using both today because I do want to fold in some chopped peaches into my mousse for the filling of this pie. But I also want to make like a peach compote that's going to go on the top layer before I put the whipped cream. So I have these fresh peaches here, and this is not really the best method for getting the skin off your peaches. However, it is the easiest. Well, I don't know if I should say that. Sometimes it's very difficult depending on how ripe your peaches are. There is a proper way for skinning your peaches, and I was looking for some old footage from like way back in 2013 where I showed you guys how to actually plunge peaches into boiling water, and then you immediately put them into cold water and it loosens the skins and they come off like so easily, but I couldn't find that footage. So, but I'm not gonna do that today, because if you have a really good sharp vegetable peeler, as you see, I've really taken the skins right off of these peaches with ease. So anyway, I'm going to be making a peach compote by skinning the peaches, and then I'm going to cut them away from the pit. And then so it doesn't really matter how, like, you know, I could really just rough chop this up because I'm just going to be cooking this down. Now, you could equally use frozen peaches for this. I wouldn't recommend those, so I should take back what I said. I wouldn't recommend using canned or jarred peaches for the compote portion. I would prefer that you use fresh or get yourself some frozen peach slices to do this. So let me just cut up a couple of these peaches, get them into a sauce pot. I'm not sure if I'm going to use sugar or not. I'm going to have to taste that. And then I'm just going to cook that down to a quick, like, jelly-like compote. So let me do that real quick. And then we're going to get to talking about the filling for this pie. And I've tested it both ways. And I've decided on a mousse-like filling versus a custard filling, which is the way that I thought I was going to go originally. I really liked the light and airiness of the peach mousse that I'm using, but if you don't have white chocolate, which is an essential ingredient for my mousse recipe, if you can't get white chocolate, then you may want to opt for the stovetop custard recipe, which is sort of like a peach diplomat cream, where we'll be folding whipped cream into the recipe. So anyway, I've got a couple of options here for everyone, so no matter what, you will be able to make this peach cream pie. So I am going to make the real quick mousse base for this, which is going to be a couple of these peach halves, these poached peaches. I'm going to do 4 of them. These are pretty much the size that you'll see in a canned peach, or if you do poach your own peaches. So that's going into my Magic Bullet. If you have a food processor or a blender, it's the same thing. So I just want to blend that up to a puree. And again, frozen peaches work beautifully for this too. I'm going to add my plant milk to that and a little bit of sugar. Even though the peaches are very sweet and canned peaches would be even sweeter, I'm adding some sugar to it because don't forget, we're going to be folding in whipped cream, and that would tend to drown out any flavor and sweetness. Now, I do have my white chocolate here, but I'm not going to add that until I get all of this onto the stove. So first of all, I have to whiz this up in my Magic Bullet. It'd help if I plugged it in. All right, take a look at that beautiful peach puree base. So the reason why I'm pouring it into a sauce pot is because we are going to be adding agar as the thickener to help this mousse, and I have to melt the white chocolate with it as well. At the end, I will be adding in some peach flavor. This is optional, but you guys know how much I love my Olive Nation products. They do have, in my opinion, the best flavors and quality baking products, and you guys can get 20% off your order just by clicking through to my website to grab this recipe. I provide the discount code for Olive Nation. Anything that you want to buy from them. They were nice enough to send me this peach flavor, and I'll tell you what, it really does wonders to this recipe. So if you want to pick that up, go ahead and click through to grab the recipe and the discount code. All right, let's get this to the stove so I can show you how to thicken up this mousse base, and we're almost done, believe it or not. So real quick before we get to cooking the mousse base, I just want to show you that I've got those peaches here on the stove. I've added a little bit of sugar and a little bit of white wine to help the cooking down process, but you could totally just use a couple of tablespoons of water to help the process. If you have frozen peaches, chances are you're not going to need to add any water, but you can see that it's a nice chunky compote, which is exactly what I'm going for. There is quite a bit of liquid though, which obviously I added extra liquid because I wanted it to be a real nice compote, but I'm thinking that I want to tighten up that liquid a little bit. So I've taken just a teaspoon of cornstarch with a teaspoon of water, and I've made a little slurry, and once this comes up to a boil, I could add that in, and that's going to sort of tighten up all of those juices that I don't really want interfering with my mousse. And that's the only reason why I'm doing that, because this is going to get poured on top of the set mousse that's in the pie. And I just don't want to run the risk of having, like, you know, the excess liquid from this compote sort of interfering with that beautiful, delicate mousse. I want it to be a clear, separate layer. So by adding just a little bit of cornstarch, I'm able to tighten up the liquids in there, and once this cools, it's not going to be a dripping mess. Of course, you can omit the cornstarch totally. It's still going to be delicious. You'll have a more rustic looking peach cream pie. Now, I'm not even going to be washing this pot. I am going to cook my mousse base directly in the same pot that I had my peach compote. And the only reason that we're even cooking this at all is because I have to activate the agar. Agar needs to come to a boil in order for it to do its thickening abilities. So let's go ahead and just, also I need to melt the white chocolate. Honestly, you could melt the white chocolate separately and just pour that in, but I like to just sort of do it all together. All right. See how that's come up to a nice boil? We could go ahead and remove that from the heat at this point and add in the white chocolate. Now again, if you can't get white chocolate, this is an essential ingredient for a fruit mousse base because it does help thicken it. So, and it brings sweetness and it brings richness and body to it with fat, and it's just a really nice ingredient for the base of a fruit mousse. Now, if you don't have white chocolate or don't want to use it, you can absolutely use the peach custard recipe that I'll provide for you on my website, which is essentially the same method. You're basically cooking a stovetop custard with similar ingredients but little different ratios, and then we're just going to be folding in the whipped cream. So it's really not that much different in the method. It's just a different set of ingredients for those who can't get the white chocolate. All right, so that's all incorporated. We're gonna reserve this to a large mixing bowl and let it cool because we can't fold whipped cream into a hot mousse base like this. So we're gonna have to monitor that. You don't wanna cool it too much so that it starts to set. Add in that peach flavor, just about a teaspoon. And one thing I noticed when I did the test recipes for this was that once I added the whipped cream into my mousse base here, the white whipped cream really drowned out the beautiful color of the peach. So I decided to add a drop of pink and a drop of yellow food color to really enhance that peach color. Totally optional. If you want to keep it completely natural, you can leave out this part, but I really liked the look of the authentic peach color. So this is already starting to gel. I didn't even put this in the refrigerator. The agar really starts working quickly. As soon as the mixture starts to cool down, the agar will start to thicken, and that's why you do have to monitor this, because you don't want it to get too thick or too cold before you fold in the whipped cream, because then you're going to have like kind of like this chunky mousse base, and you want to keep the whole thing really smooth. Additionally, you don't want it to be too warm, or else once you fold in your whipped cream, you're just going to melt the whole thing. So that's almost there. It's still a little bit warm to the touch, but like I said, the edges are starting to thicken, so you do want to monitor that and stir it back down so that you don't get real thick edges and then a warm middle. So I've used almost this whole entire jar of these vanilla peaches. Well, okay, I ate a bunch of them too, so not really, but this was a 32-ounce jar of peaches, and what did I use? 4 for the mousse base. I just chopped up 3 of them because I'm gonna fold that into the mousse because I want chunks of peaches. So here is our blind baked pie shell. I mean, look at that. It's so beautiful. I'm telling you, like, I'm just like freaking out over this pie dough. It's so delicious. And one thing I did want to note though, if you wanted to keep this entire peach cream pie completely no bake, you can go ahead and do like a cookie crust instead. And then you don't have to turn the oven on at all. But I'm telling you what, I can't stop raving about the taste of this crust in combination with all of this peaches and cream. Okay, so I have my vegan whipped cream all whipped up and ready to go because my mousse base is just about ready. Now, I've been listing out whenever we're making a cold preparation dessert like this that requires some whipped cream, because everybody's using so many different products, or some people are using my homemade recipe for vegan whipped cream. I tend to love the Silk brand heavy whipping cream. Some people are using coconut milk cans to get whipped cream. So I'm basically listing it out as whatever whipped cream you love the best. You are going to need 1.5 cups of volume total to make this mousse. And then we're going to be putting more whipped cream on the top of the pie once everything is set. So you're going to need another like maybe 2 cups of whipped volume of whipped cream for the topping. So it's just kind of easier than trying to decipher how much whipped cream you're going to get out of some coconut milk cans. All right, so there is our mousse base. And to that, I'm going to add in my chopped peaches. So now into the refrigerator this goes, and once it's completely set, we're going to layer the peach compote and then another layer of whipped cream. All right, this was not even an hour, and this mousse filling is set. You can kind of see that. I don't know if you can see that, but you definitely want to wait until the mousse is set. You could definitely let it sit overnight. And take a look at this compote that I added a little bit of cornstarch to. Do you see the difference now? Before it was like really liquidy, and peaches don't really have a lot of natural pectin, and if they do, it's going to be in the skins, and we didn't use the skin, so that's why I tightened it up with the cornstarch. So let me just go ahead and spoon this over the top. And you know, one thing I wanted to mention about the filling and using agar in your desserts as a thickener. I do write all about agar and notes for success when using agar in your recipes, because agar can be a tricky ingredient to work with. if you use too much, you'll border on, well, you won't border on. If you use too much, you will literally have like a piece of rubber, and it's not very palatable and it's not pleasing to eat. So I wrote a whole article about using agar in your desserts and different brands and what to look out for, with notes for success and options for substitutions and explanations about the ingredients. So, you know, I'm not writing about my summer vacation and why I love peaches so much. Like, I'm literally writing all about why the recipe works the way it does and what you need to look out for. So that's why I don't have a jump to the recipe button. And I mean, I get it, you guys. I am also a user of the internet, and I cannot stand it when websites are just bombarding you with ads. And so I feel like I have, you know, a pretty good user experience on my website, and I do apologize for the ads, but you know, it's the only way that I can continue to buy all the ingredients to test these recipes so that you guys have no fail results every time. That, and of course, my awesome PayPal pals and patrons who help fund this effort every month, and for as little as a cup of coffee a month, you too could help support this effort, and maybe eventually we could get the ads off of the website altogether. But until then, you will have to go to Gretchen'sVeganBakery.com to grab the recipe and deal with the ads. So here we have it. I had the layer of luscious compote, little bit of vegan whipped cream. I didn't want to pile this thing high because the mousse itself has a really big amount of whipped cream already, and I didn't feel like it needed an absorbent amount of whipped cream on the top as well. I went for fresh peaches on the top for this one because I really do love the look of the skin. It's such a pretty fruit, and so that little red and orange contrast there to me looks really pretty. I just don't like to have the skins inside the recipes. That's why I always do peel them. So let's go ahead and let this set a little bit before I go ahead and cut it and taste it. And in the meantime, you guys go grab all the recipes on my website, and we'll be right back for the tasting of this luscious pie. I'm drizzling some caramel sauce left over from last week's cake project just because I'm being super extra today. But just take a look at this peach cream pie. The combination of the peach mousse with the peaches folded in the layer of peach compote was actually what was giving me the biggest problem in trying to cut a decent slice, because my knife kept getting stuck in those chunky peaches. So, but I really would recommend to do this pie exactly the way that I have it here. There is peach just bursting in every bite. This pie is absolutely delicious. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching my video. As always, a special thank you to my patrons on Patreon and my pals in PayPal for the continued support to allow me to keep sharing all of my recipes for free with everyone. If you think you can support for as little as a cup of coffee a month, click the links below to find out how. Thank you so much to everyone for watching, and definitely comment below. All right, everyone, until next time, happy vegan baking. Bye for now.